So this is what, if anyone was ever interested, this is what the earliest version of our maps look like. And in point of fact, what the very, very earliest version of the maps look like is this. This is how a map starts in our world. It's literally me sitting here with a paper and a pencil, and I fiddle around with a paper and pencil and an eraser until I feel like I've got a world that I like. And what I'm looking at when I start is I'm looking at some of the big things. You see the little dots here. This is where I intend to put the capital cities. And so what I'm doing very early on in the game is I'm just kind of moving stuff around and figuring out how I'm gonna, trying to see in my mind how the battle is gonna go. And so if I look here, I can see in this top. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not. Can you? I don't know. Well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see there's a country up there. And then I count, and I say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from that country to the capital of the country, the bottom left-hand corner. And then I say, all right, well, how far is it to that country over to the far right-hand side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty reasonable. How far is it to the country in the upper right-hand corner? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I've got a reasonable distance between each one, so that's normal. Then I start looking at, all right, do they have? Where are these guys going to fight? What are they going to do? And it's very straightforward to say, okay, everyone gets 5 countries, and everyone gets a country next to them that's 3 countries big, and you could do that. You could make very symmetrical maps like that, and we've got a couple that are pretty symmetrical. But in general, as a designer, I'm not a big fan of the symmetrical map, because I want people to feel, this position is better or worse. I want people to have something to talk about in the game. And so here you can see, if I look at, let's call it the upper left and the bottom left, or actually here, let me go to my next step. Once I've kind of figured out what I'm doing, what I actually do is I then mark up the map. And the map markup is me looking at where the kingdom's going to be, where the border's going to be, what are the starting level, what are the starting kingdoms going, what are the starting countries going to be if you blast quick start. So here you can see at the upper left-hand corner, there's a big red country, and the little yellow star is the capital, right? So I said, all right, those 3 countries right around that star, they're going to be your starting countries if you start with quick start. And then I start looking at, well, how can I put these, I've already thought about this, but I'll go back to it now that you can kind of see it broken down. I'm thinking about, where are these guys going to fight? Are they going to have big countries, little countries? And I want to give people sort of a variety. So if you look at the yellow countries down on the bottom right hand, those yellow countries are, it's a little 3 territory country. There's a little, the green one next to it's another 3, and the little purple one next to it's another 3. So here's some little 3 country kingdoms. And so over there, you're going to have those people fighting for those little 3 country kingdoms. You'll be able to cap those relatively quickly. But over on the left-hand side, there's a little bit more diversity. There's some big 5 country kingdoms and a 4 country kingdom. So now there's kind of a little bit of diversity, and people can decide, do they want to go try to get the little kingdoms? Do they want to try to go with the big kingdoms? How do they want to play it? And that's sort of the heart of how I want these to play out. I also think about where are the choke points going to be? What are they going to fight about? What is it they're going? What is their goal? What are they going to want when they play? And here you can clearly see, okay, well, they're going to want these. If you look at the territory 3 or territory 12, territory 17, territory 15. These are clear choke points. These are places where people are going to be able to bottle up their enemy and stand up and make a defense. Now, I haven't gotten to the next stage yet. The next stage yet is to figure out what the terrains are. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to make those terrains that are in those choke points kind of fun, defensible terrains in some cases. So, I might put some mountains or something like that. And so that way I've got a mountain, and now the player can think, aha, I'm going to go put a citadel in those mountains, in this choke point. Then I'm going to go get Graziano, and I'm going to get some, a whole big pile of skeletons, and I'm going to hold this choke point, and that's going to be a defensive point for me. I try to make it so that they have a lot of those kind of options in the game to think about. So this is actually what I've got planned for the first map of the new Dwarf campaign for the Dwarf DLC. And yesterday we were having a lot of talk about what the Dwarf DLC is going to be and how we're going to be fair to our users about it while still charging for a DLC. And this gets into the world where I guess business meets entertainment, and you have to be cognizant of both. And you have to think about your users, and you have to think about what's fair. So what we did is we thought about the original game, and we said, look, you got 3 campaigns and 3 races in the original game, and that cost you $25. Now, admittedly, it's been on sale for $20 for pretty much its entire life. I don't think a single human being has paid $25 for this game. Most people bought it at $15 when it was in early access, or at $20 in our sales that we've had since we launched. So, but if we're going to start with a full retail price, we said the full retail price was $25. If I separate that out by the 3 campaigns and the 3 factions, that puts me at 25 divided by 3, which is, you know, a little bit more than $8 per campaign. And so we said, all right, if I give you a whole new campaign and a whole new faction, a bunch of dwarves, a bunch of cards, all the fun stuff that goes with that, then what's a fair price for that? And we said, well, a fair price would be 1/3 of what the original game cost. And so we set that at $8 and said, all right, that's the retail price. Now, I'll let you in on a secret. Nobody pays retail price for games on Steam. The Steam community has been trained to think that everything on Steam has to be bought at a discount. So obviously when we do our financial planning, we don't assume that everyone's going to buy this game at $8. We assume they're probably going to buy it at something like $5 when we put it on sale. So we said, all right, let's consider an $8 price, a $5 sale price. That seems a fair deal for, you know, the 10 more campaigns, a whole new playable race, etc., etc. So we put that DLC up. So the next question was, who gets that DLC? And while it would technically be possible, I think, to allow you to buy that Dwarven DLC without having to have bought the full game before, we shied away from it. We shied away from it for a couple reasons. And the biggest one was we kind of fear what a lot of the players would say. Because a lot of the players bought the full game at $20, and if they find out, oh, actually you could have gotten access to a whole campaign and the dwarves for only $8, they'd be kind of pissed off and say, why did I pay $20 for this full game when I could have gotten this one other thing for $8 alone? So we didn't want to piss them off. And so we said, well, maybe what we do is we follow the sort of general guidelines that most games with paid DLC follow. And in this we're looking at games like Civilization or Crusader Kings, Total War, etc. And these games basically said, alright, you've got to buy the full version of the game, and now you can buy DLCs for it. So alright, so we make the DLC only available to people who've purchased the full game. So if you've purchased the full game, then you can grab the DLC for an extra $8 and realistically $5 when it's on sale. So, now we've got a model. You get the demo of the game. The demo is free. The demo allows you to, you know, play the first level of each one of the Revenant, Feyborn, and Human campaigns. Gives you access to 4 heroes that you can play with, and basically gives you a good taste of the game. And then we ask you, hey, if you want the rest of the campaigns and you want the rest of the heroes for these factions, then you're going to have to buy the full game. So we said, with a Dwarf campaign, why don't we do the same thing? And so as a sort of treat to the people who've already purchased the full game, when we release the DLC, we'll actually include the Dwarf campaign as something you get when you buy the full campaign, or when you buy the full game. So now you play the demo. The demo gives you access to Feyborn, Human, and Revenant heroes, the first 4 of each of those heroes, and the first map of each one of their campaigns. Now you buy the full game. With the full game, you get the full campaigns for the Revenant, the humans and the Feyborn, you get all the heroes for them, etc., etc. You get the whole package. You also get availability to play in ranked mode. Now, what we'll do is we will also add to that full purchase, and everyone who's bought the game in the past will get this. You'll get 4 dwarves that you can play, and you'll get the first Dwarven campaign mission that you can play. So now, as free content to anyone who's bought the game already, or anyone who will buy the game in the future, you actually get a demo for the DLC, right? Now, if you want all the Dwarven heroes, and you want all the Dwarven campaign, great, you can get that. You have to pay the extra DLC cost for it. So that to us seems a very fair model. As a gamer, I feel very fair about that. I feel like we're not cheating anybody, we're not ripping anyone off. There's a very fair deal in, if you bought the game in the past, the DLC is going to give you some free content already. If you've only ever gotten the demo of the game, then you don't get any new stuff with the Dwarf DLC. You're going to have to actually buy into the game to get that, which I think is fair. And if you're willing to buy the DLC, which we think is a very reasonable price, you get a huge pile of content for that. So that's the model that we're following. Now the big news on that is we will be doing a Kickstarter. Actually, a bunch of people here in this stream thought that a Kickstarter would be a fun thing to do. It would be something interesting for people. So we are doing a very low ask Kickstarter. I think we're going to set it at $3,000. So we're going to ask for $3,000. And I think, honestly, we'll probably build the damn content whether or not the Kickstarter works in the same way that we built the game, even though our last 2 Kickstarters failed. But I think it's a great marketing vehicle because there are a lot of people looking for interesting new games on Kickstarter, and if we advertise the DLC on Kickstarter, I think at least a few people will say, oh, that looks pretty interesting, I should go check out the original game, and maybe we'll get some people to come check out the original game, and if they like it, maybe they'll support that Kickstarter. So we're hoping that that will work as a sort of marketing vehicle. But the ask will be very, very low. It'll be like $3,000, and I think we should be able to scrape up $3,000 on Kickstarter. That seems a very reasonable possibility. So that's that. I will show you actually. Hang on a minute. I think I have somewhere. Let me make a new slide real quick. I will use this as a place to put things. Hang on a sec. So the question from Colgan is, if somebody only has the demo and they want to buy the Dwarf DLC, do they have to buy the full game first before being able to buy the Dwarves? This was a discussion that we had. Technically, both answers to this question are possible on Steam. The answer of you, let me start again. So both are technically possible. We are concerned that if we allow the user, here I've just got this big blank white screen on. Let me put something a little more amusing. Here, there's me. Wait, no, that's not what I want. That there. Let's put this at the top. There we go. There's me. So the question is, do we allow them to? Yeah, lurk on. If we allow you to get the demo and buy the Dwarf package alone without buying the full game, my concern is a lot of people who did purchase the full game are going to get pissed off. And they're going to say, dude, I put my money down for the full game. I paid $20 for the full game. How come these assholes get to pay for $8? That sucks. If I had known this was available, I would have waited and I would have bought that. Right? Now, admittedly, they're not getting the full game. They're not getting the Revenant and the Human and the Feyborn campaign. They're not getting those heroes. But we have learned that the Steam audience is pretty easy to piss off and pretty easy to upset, and so we want to make sure that we're not opening that can of worms. The other question is, we said, okay, well, what if we limit and say only people who bought the dwarves can play versus the dwarves, etc. And all of that, I was like, fuck all of that. We've kind of got a thing in the game now where we understand that you can play any map that anyone plays in multiplayer, just you need to own the map if you want to host it. That seems a fair rule to me, so we wanted to continue that rule. So what we came down with was the answer of, look, the DLC is for people who buy the full game. And in fact, the demo for the DLC is for people who buy the full game. So if you want to play the demo of the Dwarven DLC, if you want to and the demo of the Dwarven DLC, you won't have to download anything. It'll literally just be one day you'll look at your game and there'll be a note that says last night's patch has added the first level of the Dwarven campaign and 4 Dwarven heroes to your game. And every single person in the world who has bought a copy of the game at that point will suddenly get to play 4 Dwarven heroes and get to play the first Dwarven map. And so that's your demo for the map. Is now, if you've bought the full game, you now have access to that. And then if you I just spilled my water on my keyboard. That's not cool. Hang on just a second. I gotta go get a towel. It's okay. I buy cheap keyboards. I don't think I got too much water in that keyboard. All right. So that was cool. Wow. Okay. So where was I? Damn it! Where was I? Now I'm confused. Yeah, I was talking about dwarves. So yeah, that's the plan. And I think it's a good plan. I think it's a fair plan for everybody. I think it's fair for us in that, hey, if you want all this cool content and you want to be part of the Callasia community and you want the demos for the DLC and all that good shit, wow, OBS is being weird. If you want demos for all the good shit, then you're going to have to... Oh, when I was wiping off the keyboard, I hit a key that said turn off the webcam. So anyway, I think that's a fair answer to the audience. So we're going to go with that. After, for those of you who were with us during the launch of the game, you know that didn't go real well because we made decisions about Steam and some of those decisions were not well loved. So we're actually being very cautious and careful right now about making sure that we make decisions that don't piss anybody off, that are very easy to understand, that very clearly lay out what we're doing to our audience so that nobody feels cheated or upset. And that, for me, this is the most disappointing, depressing fucking thing about making video games right now. I'm gonna rant for a second. This is where I get personally, and I don't mean professionally, I actually mean personally, this is where I get personally upset making video games these days, is the assumption that we want to rip anybody off. There's always this, and I get it. There are shitty, abusive people out there. The internet is a shitty, abusive place. And people who spend time on Steam, and people who spend time on Twitch, and people who spend time on Twitter, and people who are involved in the internet and are involved in the internet communities, they know there are horrible, shitty people out there. I mean, just absolutely terrible people out there that will do terrible things. And the community is ready for that. They're ready to be taken advantage of. They're constantly worried that when they give somebody their money, or when they're asked for money, or when they buy a game, or when they get something off Steam, they're that close to breaking because they've been finger fucked so many times by unscrupulous developers and unscrupulous publishers that they're just ready to lose their shit. And because we are trying to work in that environment, there's like an assumption of guilt that people start with, that oh, I don't understand your business model, you must be trying to rip me off. I don't understand how this works, you must be dishonest. And it starts from there. And as a developer, we always have to be, and we weren't careful about that enough. when we launched Callasia the first time, and it was in the free-to-play section, and we got trashed by people who didn't like it being in the free-to-play section. And I get it. I'm not getting angry at the people who got angry with us. I'm actually getting angry with all the free-to-play developers who created such a shitty environment that people assumed that we were trying to rip them off there, not because they were assholes, but because they had been ripped off so many times before by so many shitty human beings. And so, because this toxic environment exists that we have to work in, we have to be very careful about how we present ourselves and how we present our business model and how we present our game and what kind of business model we put together. This is, for me, extremely sad and extremely stressful, because what I want to worry about, what I want to spend my time on, is this kind of shit that we've got here on the screen right now. I want to talk about how we're building levels. What new content are we putting together? What kind of new heroes are we going to make? People reporting bugs in the game and us fixing those bugs. I want to be in that world. That's the world I want to live in. That's the things I want to worry about. But I would say a good 25% of my time, and I would say well over 75% of Monica's time, is spent dealing with the business side of games and dealing with how we present ourselves to our users and how we market our products in a way that is in a way that is not going to upset anybody. And I'll note, by the way, actually, I just got a private message from Monica, and she's like, "Please be careful of what you're ranting about. I'm planning to export this video, how to make a map." And I, you know, maybe she'll have to edit this for content, but I'm proud of everything I'm saying here. This is all legit, right? This is all real. This is all stuff that game developers have to deal with. And I think when people think about being a game developer, and there are a lot of people who are out there thinking, I'd like to be a game developer when I get older, and it's an honorable career, it's a fun job, I like it. This part of it is something people don't think about. And there have been other developers, I won't mention any names, but there have been other developers who have been destroyed by the internet mob for whatever reason. Indie developers who presented themselves incorrectly, indie developers who made games that people didn't like, people who made mistakes in their business model. There have been people who've been destroyed by sort of the angry mob of upset gamers. And rather than me, you know, stomping my foot and saying these gamers are all shit and why are they so mean, that's not the problem. The problem is they have a point. The problem is this industry is extremely abusive. And I would point my finger very obviously at free-to-play games. And this is coming from a man who's made free-to-play games. We've made a number of free-to-play games. We don't anymore. We stopped making free-to-play games. And the big reason we stopped making free-to-play games is because I refuse to do it anymore. Because I see those business practices as abusive. I don't think that the direction this game industry is going right now is a happy place. I think the direction of constantly asking people to pay from little tiny bits for little tiny bits of content, not allowing people to own their own games. I think there's so much going on in the industry right now that's so abusive. And we're trying very hard to run what I would consider an honest company. And when we put together the business plan for Callasia, and it sounds very unsexy to say the business plan for our game. It makes me sound like I'm putting together the fucking company or something. But this is the reality. We do this for a living. This is not a hobby for us. This is how I pay for my daughter's ballet lessons and my food. This is, you know, all the shit you see behind you. This was all bought with money from games. This is how we live. And so for us, when we put together a game, we have to think about the business case for the game. And that business case for the game has to balance, A, being fair to the users and offering enough value to the users that they feel that they've been treated properly, with making sure that we can actually, you know, pay our staff and keep the lights on and pay for the copies of our or pay for the copies of Photoshop and whatnot that we use. I mean, this is not a cheap business. We have right now, I believe, 26 people on staff. Every one of them has to have a computer. They all have to have internet. They all, you know, require various versions of software. none of this shit's free. And so to pay, and that's just the stuff that they need to work. I mean, this is their full-time job. This isn't a hobby for them. They also all have to pay for food and electricity and rent and clothes, and every now and then we allow them to leave their desks to go watch a movie or eat with their friends, and they have to pay for that too. And the people who work at the studio, you see how often we're online. You see how much we're around. This is not a hobby for us. This is our life, and we have to pay for all that. So there's a balance there. The balance between how do we get everyone paid and how do we offer a fair deal to our users. But anyway, I've gotten way off tangent. So getting back to how I make games, and specifically how I make levels. So here, you can like cut and paste starting from right here, Monica. So the first thing that we do is I start with a very simple map. Here's my very simple map. And in fact, here it is right here. This was drawn on a piece of paper. This is the actual piece of paper. So you're seeing right here the thing. You'll note, if you look, I tend to leave notes to myself in Japanese every now and then. If you're wondering what that little weird character that looks like a square with a hat, that means rock, actually. And the reason I drew the character rock there is because when I marked this up and sort of made this a little easier for our artist to read, all that brown spot right there, that's all rock. And so this level is actually an underground level. The first level of the Dwarven campaign will be your introduction to the underground and where the Dwarven, I think we're calling it the Hollow, is what the mid-ground, or the Great Hollow. And the idea is there's a huge, enormous hollow space inside of the earth that the dwarves used to inhabit, and it's full of these ginormous kingdom-sized chambers. And so, good luck with that, Monica. You can include. You're gonna cut and paste the shit out of this, but have fun. Anyway, I don't care. You can include my big rant too. So all of this brown is rock, and then the idea is that the black spot is actually an enormous void that just goes down to the center of the earth. And so all of the levels are like on these shelves or on these big plateaus or platforms of big, huge flat spaces. Now, one of the things that we're looking at right now, and we're actually going to be talking about when this stream is over later today, is I'll be looking at, well, what are the terrain types? Because, right now, Callasia has forests and wastes and mountains. I'm not sure that mountains make sense in this environment, and so we're looking. So, for instance, forests are going to be replaced with massive fungal forests, and we'll have to figure out how we put that together and whatnot. There's a whole conversation to be had about what the terrain types are underground. Please feel free to leave me some notes either here in chat or over in Discord about your thoughts about interesting terrains underground. But that's one of the things we're going to have to look at. So once I've kind of got an idea what the map looks like, I hand that over to the artists. And let's see, I believe, this is going to take me a second to go dig up, I believe Edwin has already put together the base art for this. And the base art starts with, hang on a minute, I've got it here. I've got so much art. I'm sorry, I'm digging through my references here. It's a whole conversation. So yeah, so the next step, let me open up a blank page real quick. So the next step is he draws something that looks like this. Well, that didn't happen like I wanted it to. There we go. He draws something that looks like this. And so now you can kind of see, that looks a little bit like a map of Callasia, right? And so each one of these little country spot things here is actually an individual file in Photoshop. So what you're looking at here is, it's actually an individual layer in Photoshop. What you're looking at here is a big, huge bunch of Photoshop layers, each one of which is the different countries. So you can kind of see from here the resemblance to that, right? So this is my ugly version. This is Edwin's first version. And then from there, this gets exported, and each one of these individual little territory spots becomes an individual file that we can work with. Later on, he'll actually write the names of the kingdoms and stuff on here, and we'll edit that. But the next step for me is to go over to Excel and build a bunch of shit in Excel, which explains what happens in these levels. So each one of these little territories becomes a line in an Excel file where I say what kind of creatures live there, what kind of terrain is there, are there castles or hamlets or anything like that there, how much money is this worth, how many victory points is it worth, blah blah blah. There's if you were truly interested, I could show you that file, but it's just an Excel file. It's not that exciting. So the next step in the stuff that you guys might find interesting is we start looking at how do we design the art for this? How do we make it look good? And to be blunt, we go and look at references. And I went and I looked at references for caves, and I specifically looked at references for underground caves. And here I'm going to show you a bunch of art that we didn't do. I want to be very clear, this is not our art, but this is what artists do. They go look at references. So for instance, I went and looked at, let's see, this is one of the things that I looked at. And this is an example. I found a whole bunch of art like this that reminded me of my old experiences as a D&D gamer looking at D&D maps. For those of you who played D&D, this will be not new to you. You're like, oh, I've seen shit like that before, right? Problem is, if you look at this map versus, let's say, one of our Callasia maps. Let me pull up a good-looking Callasia map real quick. The problem is the look of this versus the look of one of our maps is a little different because our maps have a little bit of perspective to them. So here, no, that's not the one I want. Hang on a sec. Here's a picture of a map you might remember. This is one of the maps from Callasia. This is oh shit, which map is this? Glacierlands, I believe, right? And so if you see the Glacierlands, it's not really an exact top-down view. There's a little bit of perspective to it. That's why you can see the sides of the trees, you see the sides of the mountains. So if I compare that versus this, it looks a little weird because this is a straight down map and this is not a straight down map. And so we were looking at how do we solve that problem, right? So we went and we looked for some more references and looked at some more stuff. Here's another reference that I sent the artists early on. This is from Wizards of the Coast, obviously, and this was from, I guess, the time they were putting together a bunch of shit for their Forgotten Realms world. And again, I liked the idea of this feeling of a cross section, like somebody's cut the world and you can kind of see a cross section and then you can see in. But again, we have the problem that this is a straight down view versus our slightly slight angled view. So we said, how do we get something that reminds people of this old Dungeons and Dragons feel? This, and again, credit to Wizards of the Coast. This is not our art. How do we get something that feels like this, but works in an environment like this? So Edwin went and started putting together some ideas, and let me share with you. Here was his very first attempt, and now you can see this is. This is our level, right? You'll remember our groovy level. And he kind of put together some sort of like this, but it had like some little chains and some details in it, and I felt this was too detailed-y, because this feels like, you know, like there should be a dude standing right there, not like a kingdom, not like a huge underground kingdom. It felt very small to me. And so I said, that's an interesting idea, but we need to look again. I gave him some more references, some other things to look at. Here, for instance, is another reference that we were looking at. Again, I think this is more Wizards of the Coast art. I'm not sure. That's the danger of the internet. I don't know where the hell any of our references come from. But, you know, I was looking again at this thing. Can we make it feel more like that? So then Ben, who has a better eye for art than I do, him being an artist and shit. Wasner says isometric view. What we've got is not quite isometric. If you look at this, Isometric has a very specific meaning, and isometric means that you're looking at it from 3/4 up and down. If you ever played Diablo, that's probably the most classic isometric view that this generation understands is Diablo. This view that we have in our game isn't actually isometric because it's actually not looking at it from 2 angles, it's looking at it from 1 angle slightly down, and it's also a little higher than a standard isometric view. So yeah, that's kind of our challenge, is how do we do that? And to be quite honest, the perspective in our game is kind of fucked up a little, because it was designed to be map representational, and if you look at, classic old maps, not everything on that map follows the exact same perspective, and our maps suffer from the same illness because they were designed to look like that. So Ben went and looked at some other stuff, and he found this really interesting image. And this, I have no idea what game this is from or where this is from, but it's neat. We looked at this and we were like, hey, that's kind of a cool look. Where there's that kind of feeling of, you see the cave wall and then you see the ground, and that's just kind of interesting. Now the problem with this image is this is a forced perspective image, and by forced perspective I mean if you look at the bottom of the image, it looks like you're looking straight down, but if you look at the top of the image you can actually see the little door and stuff, and what that's doing is it's actually it's an artistic trick to model the way that your eyes actually see the world. If you're looking down, stuff directly below you, the walls would be like that. Stuff in front of you, the walls would be like that. So it's trying to emulate that look, which we could do, but it's a little bit more difficult. So Edwin went back to it and came up with this, which, I don't know. It's kind of, we were like, I don't know really where you're going with that. But it was kind of the same idea, but it wasn't really getting there. So then he went back to the drawing board a little bit, and he came back with this. And now we're getting back to our own company's original art again. And so here you can see he's starting to get these sort of cut-off look with sort of canyons and whatnot. We're kind of getting somewhere now, but it's still not really there. So, we went, and this is the part about games that I think a lot of people don't get, which is they look at a finished game and they say, well, it wouldn't take very long to draw that. And you're right. If all you had to do was go look at somebody else's game and copy it, yeah, that doesn't take very long to do. But when you're trying to innovate, when you're trying to do something new, and what we're doing here with these big, huge underground cave maps, I don't know a lot of games that have done this shit before. So we're way out on a limb doing some pretty innovative new shit here. When you do that, there's a whole lot of art that gets thrown away because you do it over and over and over again. You say, that's not right, we keep fucking around with it, it takes weeks. This is where time goes in making innovative games, and people don't know that. But, that again, rant aside, at this point, Edwin, who is the world's biggest Diablo player, said, look at this, I want something that looks a little bit like this. And I said, well, actually, you've kind of got a point, because if you look, this has actually also got that sort of cut-off look at the top. This is not necessarily a bad direction to go. So then we went to, Ben pulls up some more references and says, hey, look at this Final Fantasy reference, look at all the kind of stuff that's in there, we should be making our caves and canyons more like that. So we're looking at some other references, what do we do, blah 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 blah. I come back and I say, you know what, if I go back and I look at that Diablo reference, check out, then this is kind of how we communicate in the studio, is a whole lot of taking screenshots and marking them up and sending them back to each other. So yeah, these spots here that I've circled in purple, this is the same thing as what was happening here with these sort of black tops of those things. So I said, I think we're getting somewhere. I think we're finding a commonality, a thread that kind of keeps showing up. So we did a couple more versions, and then Edwin shits this out. And we all kind of stepped back and said, well, now, hey, that's interesting. That's kind of a cool look. Because here we've got that same idea of sort of a flat top at the top of things, but still the sort of land around it. He's actually even included some mountains and things. And I think this bit where the little mountains are and stuff, I think this we're going to have to still play with, because it's sort of weird scale, and we're trying to figure this kind of weird scale out. So I think there's still some stuff to be done with making broken areas look more like broken areas and whatnot. But I think now we're starting to get in a direction that's pretty interesting. Then Edwin pulls this one out, sort of a second version of what he was talking about before. Here you can see a little bit more detail-y stuff, a little bit more changes. But now I think we're going in a very interesting direction at this point. So at this point, this is where, as a designer, you always have to ask the artist, this looks really cool, but can you show it to me in context? And the reason you do this is everything looks a little different when you put it in game. So Edwin went and stuck it in game. And so we looked and said, what does this look like in game? Well, it looks like this. And I said, well, that looks pretty interesting. Like, I could kind of imagine playing this. This doesn't look too bad. I still think we need to play around with the idea of mountains like he's got there. I think that's a little weird. And I think the scale is wrong on having some of these bones and stuff in the. But then again, I think the way that we do our maps always have those sort of out-of-scale things in the way that a map designer might draw a dragon at the edge of a map or something like that. So I think this is not weird for us. But here we decided to play with color a little bit. We've got color 1. This is color option 2. And here you can see he's used a little bit on the floors of the thing. He's used a little bit more of a reddish color, so there's a bit more mix of the red with the green. And then he went for a full-on, let's make the whole thing a sort of reddy brown color. And this, I think, may be a little bit more like all the rest of the Callasia maps in terms of color, but I think it doesn't show me the idea of darkness. And I think what I liked about this one is this world feels darker. And I think we want the Dwarven world to feel darker. And so this one, I think, really stood out as being a pretty interesting version. So that's where we got to with the art, and you can see how much work gets put in this. And here we're trying to put together sort of the basic look. Once we get the basic look of what our underground looks like, then we can move on to the next step, which is let's decorate out all the rest of the maps. But while we're doing that, there's a lot of work to be done in playing the maps and making sure that the maps play well. So I went through with my little Marks a Lot pen and my copy of Google Spreadsheets, or not Google Spreadsheets, what is this, Google, what do they call their version of PowerPoint? Google Slides. And I put together a bunch more maps. And some of the maps in the Dwarven expansion are above ground. This, for instance, is the land right below Stormbite. So the area right above this is that big Stormbite playable map. For those who don't remember what Stormbite is, it's the one with all the islands, where Merlin's got his own island in the center of the islands. This is back underground again with a big ocean of salt in the center. For those of you who remember, over in that Fail Girls channel, they wanted me to name something the Sea of Salt. Well, here you go. Here is the Sea of Salt, as requested. So that'll get put in. Here's the Steam Sea, and all the red that you see here would be big, huge, flowing bits of lava going into a center sea with lots of steam and stuff coming out of it. Some fun chances for Ben to make some cool-looking effects. Next level, we go back above ground again. This is the southeast corner of the continent of, what do we call that continent? Nazanth. No, Zalanthia. Zalanthia. This is the southeast corner of Zalanthia, which is where Jade Throne is. So there's that. We should name something after that Fail Girl. And by the way, I am taking suggestions for names. For those of you who are cool and are hanging around at this point in our game, We are actually selling names as part of our Kickstarter, but as you can see, I got a lot of shit to name. So if you guys come up with some cool stuff to name stuff that's just so cool that I need to put it in game, I will put it in game. But yeah, we do need to name something after that fail girl. She's been hugely supportive of us. She's probably one of the people outside of the game company who have done the most to support and push our game. There's other people who've done a great deal, but she's certainly done a lot. So yeah, if anyone's got any cool ideas. I mean, we did name an island after Colgan, so, you know, that fail girl gets something. Fail Land. I'm not naming anything Fail Land. So let's see, the next map, this is right east of Jade Throne. So if you remember, on Jade Throne there's a big desert on the right hand side of it. This is where that desert turns into. There'll be a little river that runs along here, and sort of beautiful. So this is kind of my version of the Nile. And then a big huge mountain up here where the dwarves have this little kingdom in the middle of the mountain. So that's cool. Yeah, like I say, these names don't have to stick. But I like Dead Otter Swamp. I think that sounds cool. It's the Dead Otter Swamp. It's where the dead otters are. Like I say, if you got better names, I'm here to hear them. So now this is a little bunch of islands that are out in the middle of the ocean to the east of, between, if you look at the world map, there's on the world map, there's a, what do we call it? Stone Meadow. There's the island, Dwarven Island Stone Meadow, and between Stone Meadow and Jade Throne, there's a big, huge ocean. These are some islands out in the middle of that ocean. We've got, this is back underground again, and this is the edge of a great underground sea. Which Chinese character? That Chinese character upper right, that is, why are you asking me that, Ben? Don't you speak fucking Chinese? That's ocean. And it's the Japanese character, damn it. I make notes to myself in Japanese sometimes. So yeah, so this is back underground again, and this is the edge of the Great Deep Sea. And a big part of the campaign story is the dwarves are seeking out their ancient homeland, which was a bunch of islands in the ancient Deep Sea. And so this is when you finally find the Great Deep Sea, which is going to have been overcome by cave spawn. That's what it is, cave spawn. We're calling them the cave spawn. And so there's a bunch of these sort of creepy underworld creatures that have taken over the Dwarven Kingdom. And a lot of the game is about you versus the orcs, who have also taken over a big bunch of the underground kingdom. Why can't you see anything? My OBS looks fine. You can't see anything? But my thing, it looks fine to me. I can see stuff. I can see chat. What's going on? Why are you guys confused? What? Why is the screen black? What? Huh. That's weird. Can you see stuff now? Alright, so Monica says we can see stuff now. Alright. Alright, I'll continue and you guys can tell me if you can't see stuff now. So anyway, back to the thing. So the story is all about the hunt for this ancient underground world and the ancient Dwarven Kingdom next to the Great Undersea, and these weird cave things have taken over that. So you got to go kill the cave things and take over your world. That's a short version of the story. I don't want to spoil anything else, but I'll show you some more levels. So this is again another coast of the sea under the ground. So this is the underground sea, and then this is the final level for the Great Undersea, and this is where the Great Undersea actually runs into a huge void, and so this whole bottom edge here will be massive waterfalls of the great undersea falling into the great void. And then these are all big islands in that great undersea. So that should be all exciting and fun and should make some interesting art. But from a design point of view, going back to some of these levels, you'll notice there's a lot of big-ass levels. People have asked me for bigger levels. People want longer games and want to play bigger levels, so there's some really nice, big, huge levels in here. A couple people wanted some more fun two-player levels. I've made a couple of those. This is one. This is actually my favorite right now of the new levels, is this little two-player level. I think this one's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And I spent a little bit more time trying to make them asymmetric but balanced, so there's that. This is a really nice little four-player level that I've put together. And so actually, this one, this one, this one, this one, the last four levels, these are all levels that are not part of the campaign, but they're actually just bonus multiplayer skirmish levels that, in the same way I gave you guys Jade Throne and Stormbite and all those as a you bought the game, here have some fun multiplayer levels thing. We had some people asking for more symmetrical tournament-based levels, so that's these. This one is a relatively symmetrical four-player level. It doesn't look symmetrical, but if you actually count out all the connections and stuff, it's much more symmetrically. We have this is apparently a pair of breasts, now that I look at it. But that wasn't the intention. This is actually a big, huge six-player level based around going around these two huge volcanoes. And the idea is these will be big, huge, exciting volcanoes. Which, now that I look at it, at least I've moved on from making dicks in all of my levels. Apparently now I've moved on to huge breasts. I did not know Karam meant sink or shipwreck, but that's cool, and I'm going to keep it for that very reason. And then the last one, here it is. I wish Pige were here. I don't know where the fuck Pige is right now. Please be here. Pige, are you here? Please tell me you're here, Pige. You suck, Pige, because I am right now exposing to you, this is Pige's level. So Renegade Pige wanted a level. He actually drew one out for me and put it in Discord, and he said, I want a level where there's 8 little spaces that can't attack each other, and they all have to go to the center and attack each other in the center. And that is this level. So you can see there are 8 little kingdoms all in a circle, and then there's the Milk Sea in the center, and then there's some, which is just going to be a very white sea. So there, that's this level. Very tournament-based, very straightforward. Go play in this. But it's not perfectly symmetrical in the way that I know some of you guys want, you know, it to look exactly where every country is exactly the same size, exactly the same connections. I just can't bring myself to build that level. It's just not our game. And if you don't like the Milk Sea, you can name it something else. But that's what I'm... Because I was thinking about in caves, you always see those like really beautiful white seas in a cave. I thought that would be cool. I'm open to other ideas. We're still early enough in the process. You can name anything you want, anything you want. I spent yesterday naming everything with what are, you know, at least temporary names until somebody in the Kickstarter. We're going to allow people to name shit, so I'll be renaming stuff as we go. But for the moment, what did I just say that was? I don't know. I said anything that was racist. I talked about caves and milk. Anyway, here's a bunch of names that I've given things. So, where did the names come from? You might ask. I have. I went and looked at a big map of Norway because I thought Norway and what was the other country? Austria. Because I thought like Norway and Austria have people that probably sound like dwarves. So like if I imagined what the dwarven language sounded like, I would imagine it would be like the weird love child. Oh wait, there's Pige. I'll go back to Pige. Okay, Pige, I want you to see. We are building. It is now called the Amethyst Vein for reasons I will not explain in this thing, but it is the Amethyst Vein. This is actually Pige's level. This is the level Pige wanted me to build. It is going step by step. We are going. I will not name anything in this, anything that you're saying in chat. I'm not going to repeat them because we're going to use this video later for other things. No, you don't get any of that. But this is your level, so, you know, enjoy. And so this is part of what's been really fun about this game for me, has been that people are getting involved, and people are saying, I want this, and I want to do this thing, and I want, and that conversation between us and the audience, where people are saying, hey, can you make this thing, or can you do this thing, or I thought it'd be fun to do this thing. And because the speed for us to develop in this game is relatively quick, that we can actually respond to it by doing that stuff, this is fun for me. This is actually really an enjoyable part of this experience. No, none of those things. I will name it none of those things. So anyway, there's all of that. So the next step in the process is we build stuff. So let's see, somewhere I've got Edwin has been bit by bit going through and building the rough version of each one of these maps. Here you can see it in all its full glory. Here's the smaller version. So here it is. This is the next step on Paja's level. We are actually in the process. So the next step in this will be going and looking at all of this art that Edwin's been doing here, stuff like this, and figuring out how do we get this look and this feel for these, you know, something that looks like the stuff he's been doing. How do we translate that over to making a cool level here? So that's what we're doing in terms of making levels. What else are we doing? We're doing a bunch of